Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Wentz here, host of the Raiders Report, and coming up on today's show is going to be my reaction to ESPN's article titled 2024 NFL Free Agency Best Team Fits for the Top 50 Players. So the Las Vegas Raiders, they were mentioned 4 times in this article, and with NFL Free Agency just around the corner, starting at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on March 13, 2024. Now remember, the legal tampering period starts March 11th at noon. So basically from March 11th noon to March 13th at 4 p.m., there's going to be a lot of the breaking news that ends on happening where this player is going here, this player is going here. It doesn't become officially official until March 13th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. But right now with the NFL with the NFL tag deadline being from February 20th to March 5th, it's that's where the whole Josh Jacobs news comes into play. So we are going to talk about Jacobs today because he was one of the players that was mentioned. And for the Raiders, they're going to be aggressive this offseason. They're going to have a lot of money to spend. And currently their salary cap is at $42.6 million. That's the 10th most in the National Football League. 55 players have currently signed. We know that the Silver and Black are going to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo. It's going to save about $24 million. However, you're not really going to get that money until after June 1st. So this number here won't increase to 60-something million until a little bit later on. Now, do I think if I'm the Raiders, I still negotiate contracts and sign players based off of the knowledge that I know I'm going to get that extra $24 million post-June 1st? Yes, absolutely. But in terms of the numbers that we have right now, it is this, and it will only gain maybe a little extra mil come actual free agency time. So if you're looking for daily Raiders news and rumors videos all off season long, I promise you this, we got you covered, man. Whether it's trades, whether it's a signing, whether it's videos around the NFL draft, I promise you this, there will not be another person out there on YouTube that puts in more time and effort than me. I just took my vacation. So now you guys got me for every single day for the rest of the year that you can bet on. Subscribe, it's absolutely free. So since this video is around ESPN and their projections, ESPN is projecting that the Las Vegas Raiders, they signed defensive tackle DJ Reader. And Reader's been a name that I've brought up a few times on a few shows for the simple fact of I brought him up during my free agency targets. I brought him up on my top DTs to target in free agency. But Reader at 6'3", 335 pounds is one of the top defensive tackles on the free agent market. And if he was able to stay healthy, he might even be a little bit higher. Last season, 34 tackles, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss, and a forced fumble. But fumble recovery. When you look at the past 3 years, though, when on the field, DJ Reader has been a top 10 defensive tackle in the National Football League by a lot of standards. Even, I believe he's top 12 according to PFF over the past 3 years. He has been a dominant force on the interior. So when you think about what what ESPN had to say about Reader and why the Raiders are projected to sign him, this is what they had to say. Reader suffered a season-ending quad injury this past season, and that's the main reason I have him lower in the ranks. When healthy, Reader wins with leverage, power, and pad level at the point of attack, and he can get up to the toes of opposing quarterbacks as an interior pass rusher. 15 pressures in 2023 with the Bengals. In Vegas, he would provide a critical upgrade on the interior of the defensive line with Max Crosby and Malcolm Kuntz making plays on the edges. So when you look at the past 4 seasons for Reader, and when I look at a defensive tackle, I don't always look at the numbers that they put up, but I look more at the impact that they provide. And Reader's going to take up double teams. When you're that big of a human being, you're going to take up double teams. That's going to free up more one-on-ones for Malcolm Kuntz, more one-on-ones for Max Crosby. And one of the biggest reasons why I want the Raiders to sign an interior defensive tackle is because it's also going to help Tyree Wilson, who you drafted at number 7 overall in last year's draft. On top of that, with the Raiders' current depth chart, John Jenkins, free agent, Bilal Nichols, Adam Butler, both free agents. If you were going to go into next season and all you had was Jerry Tillery, Byron Young, Malcolm McCall, Matthew Butler, and Nesta Jade Silvera, it would be the worst defensive tackle room in the National Football League. So because of your investment in Tyree Wilson, because of your investment in a guy like Max Crosby and Malcolm Kuntz, you need to add that big man on the interior. And for people that have watched this show, I've put out this graphic before. My top DTs in 2024 free agency, for the Las Vegas Raiders. Let's not get it twisted. Chris Jones is the best player on this list, okay? Chris Jones is the number one top free agent in the entire NFL right now. However, for the Raiders, based on age, based on price, based on what I'm trying to build overall, I would rather pay a guy like Justin Matabuke $24 million, a Christian Wilkins $20 million, instead of paying Chris Jones maybe $33 million if he were to end up coming here to the Las Vegas Raiders. And because of all those things, the number one thing that I have said that I want the Raiders to do in free agency, and I feel like it's the same thing I've been saying for years and years and years, it's you need to add a big name interior defensive tackle, because then you can bring 4, which plays perfectly into the hands of what Patrick Graham likes to do. And if you have a guy like DJ Reader, Tyree Wilson, Malcolm Kuntz, Max Crosby, good luck. Good luck, offensive coordinators. So here's going to be the pinned comment on today's show. Let's just say we fast forward here a little bit, and it's March 11th, March 12th, March 13th, and I go live on this show, and I go, hey, the Las Vegas Raiders, they have just signed defensive tackle DJ Reader. Obviously, we don't know the numbers yet, right? But if you heard that news, what would you grade the signing of it? A, B, C, D, or F? You're about to get it with a YouTube ad break. Scroll on down and let me know. My answer to this would be an A- because I want the Raiders to spend big on DT this offseason, and when he's healthy, he is to me a clear top 10 defensive tackle, and he's been a top 10 defensive tackle for the past 3 seasons when he's been healthy. Yes, you're going to have to pay him money, but I know a lot of fans out there love Leonard Williams, and when you look at the numbers from a healthy standpoint, DJ Reader has been better than Leonard Williams when on the field. Williams has just been the more healthy player, and when I talk about figures, when I talk about money, this is what PFF and Spotrac has projected for DJ Reader this offseason. PFF projects 3 years, $45.75 million at $15.25 million per year. Spotrac is at 3 years, 44 with $14.9 million per year. So if I'm the Raiders right now, Tiz, I would take either of these deals in a heartbeat for DJ, because I know at 29, he's basically 29 and a half years old, going to basically be 30 years old at the start of the season. If there's one position on the defensive side of the football that I am confident in and that a guy can produce at over the age of 30, it's DT. And you add him to that interior, you finally have that big dude up the middle that's going to take on double teams that frees up Max Crosby and Malcolm Kuntz. I'm telling you right now, you bring in DJ Reader, and we're getting wild here on the Raiders Report. So coming up here next is going to be the 3 players that were mentioned with the Raiders. And anytime a guy is mentioned, now ESPN did not project that the Raiders go out and sign these next 3 guys, but they were mentioned as being candidates. And if you're projected as being a candidate, that means you're also, it makes sense. Like you're at least in the realm of possibility. So I'll give you my 2 cents on what I think of all that. But before I do, I got to show some love to today's sponsor, Game Time. And the Game Time app is a life changer. It's a game changer for a lot of people out there that enjoy going out on the weekends. For people that enjoy doing stuff, I don't want to say last minute, but it is a great app for the last minute ticket buyers out there. So to me, I'm a busy dude. I don't want to buy a ticket 2 months in advance to just know that I might not be able to go. If you're somebody like me that's like, you know what, I'm not doing anything this weekend. It's Friday night. Let's see what the heck the Game Time app has to offer. Then I want you to download the Game Time app right now. Use code RaidersChat for $20 off. Now, obviously, terms are going to apply. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code RaidersChat for $20 off your first purchase. So when we were out in Vegas, Chugs got tickets to go watch a comedy event with Tom Segura. When I was out in Las Vegas, I was on the Game Time app constantly like, man, do I get this deal? Do I do that deal? And I didn't get a ticket, and that's sometimes how it's going to be. But the reason why I love this app is because instead of just saying, I would rather just have an empty seat. Nobody would rather have an empty seat. They would rather sell you the ticket for the lowest price guaranteed, because they know that you're going to go grab a beer. They know that you're going to get a soda. They know that you're going to get some chicken tenders, maybe some fries. You're going to spend money once you walk into that event. And they know that they'd rather have people in the seat than not have people at all. So I'm telling you right now, it is the perfect app for people out in Las Vegas that just are like, I'm going to play in as much as I humanly can, but if I can't go to an event, it's all good. But if I'm sitting there on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, even if you're Thursday, Wednesday, I mean, I've gotten Mavericks tickets here in Dallas where I have no plans on a random Wednesday. And then guess what? I see a Mavericks tickets for $19. Shit, let's run it. If you're that type of person, then download the Game Time app. Use code RaidersChat for $20 off. That link's going to be available to y'all down in the comments and down in the description of today's show. All right, let's go to the next player here that was linked to the Las Vegas Raiders. It was Leonard Williams. And I'm not surprised that Leonard Williams was linked to the Silver and Black because to me, in terms of tiers of the big-name defensive tackles, DJ Reader, Leonard Williams are in a tier of their own of they're not Chris Jones, Christian Wilkins, and Justin Matabuke. They're in that different tier of I'm not going to have to pay a DT over $20 million, but I am still going to have to pay quite a bit of money. Now, Leonard was not projected to the Raiders, but he was linked to the Silver and Black, and this is what ESPN had to say. I originally had the Raiders as a possible fit for Williams, given their need at defensive tackle, but with Mike McDonald bringing his defensive system to Seattle, Williams fits better just re-signing there. Williams posted 5.5 sacks, 33 pressures, and 62 tackles this past season, and he has the versatility to disrupt both the run and pass game under McDonald. The Seahawks traded a second-rounder and a future fifth-rounder for him at the deadline, so they will be motivated to retain his services for at least one more season. Here's my take on that. The Raiders are going to be looking for a big-name defensive tackle, and ESPN knows it, right? On top of that, everything that they just mentioned with Seattle, it's 100% true. The number one team that I am willing to bet on that that Leonard Williams ends up going to is Seattle. If he doesn't end up going to Seattle, the next team that I'd put up there is the Raiders. He went to USC. He grew up a Raiders fan. And if you're going to sell anybody on being a Raider, I definitely think that Leonard Williams is absolutely one of those players. So the fact that he was just at least linked gives me a lot of confidence that the Raiders are going to be willing to put it on the table, spend some money, and go get themselves a big DT. But here's my question, because these are the questions that I love to see down in the comments on our live show. Who's the better defensive tackle? Not in general. I don't want to hear the generalization because I don't give a shit about who's the better DT in general. Who's the better defensive tackle right now in the Las Vegas Raiders? If the Raiders sign DJ Reader, if the Raiders sign Leonard Williams, and you put them on the defensive line next to Max Crosby, with Tyree Wilson, with some of our younger DTs filling in, with Malcolm Koonce, who's the guy that you expect more out of? Who's the dude that you expect to have a better year? Is it DJ Reader type DR? Is it Leonard Williams type LW? Because when on the field, DJ Reader has produced better, more impressive numbers than Leonard Williams if you're looking for a guy that's willing to take on double teams. If you want a defensive tackle that also has the ability to get after the quarterback better, you're probably looking at Leonard Williams. In terms of the guy that I think would fit better with a Patrick Graham system, I would vote Reader. The guy that I think that has more upside is Leonard Williams. Either way, I would be thrilled about both. Let's go to the next name here that ESPN mentioned. It's Josh Jacobs. And is Jacobs going to be returning to the Silver and Black? Obviously, right now with the franchise tag window open, the Raiders have that decision of whether or not they want to tag their star running back. It goes from February 20th to March 5th. I have said on the show before that I don't personally view that it makes a lot of sense for the Silver and Black to franchise tag Jacobs because I actually think that they could actually get him back in free agency on a cheaper deal. But ESPN projects this, that Jacobs signs with the Dallas Cowboys this offseason. And one of the things that they mention is that they believe that he was a better fit with Mike McCarthy, that offense, than Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard's going to be a free agent. My point is this. All right, let's just say we go down this crazy road of Jacobs doesn't come back to the Raiders. He ends up signing with the Dallas Cowboys because if there's a team that's willing to pay Jacobs maybe that $11.5 million per year, I could see Jerry Jones maybe being one of those people. Producer Coop's shaking his head right now, and he's a Cowboys fan, but he also knows, this doesn't make a lot of sense for Dallas. It doesn't make a lot of sense for a lot of NFL teams to pay a running back the amount of money of, $11.5, $12 million per season, though that's what ESPN projects. To me, I'm looking at it like this. If Jacobs goes elsewhere, well, then the Raiders need another plan because Amir Abdullah, Josh Jacobs, Jakob Johnson, they're all going to be gone. You cannot go into next season with only Zamir White, Brandon Bolden, and Sincere McCormick. Don't get me wrong. I have a lot of hope for Zamir White and Sincere McCormick. If it's up to me, I'm cutting Brandon Bolden's ass. So that means you have two running backs on your roster. That means to me, not only are you going to have to draft one, you're also probably going to have to sign one on top of that. And with the Raiders running back coach in Cadillac Williams, based off of what he did at Auburn, he likes to go with that running back by committee. So could you invest your money in other places? Yes, absolutely. Out of the names here on this list, there's only a few that I really realistically think that makes sense, like an A.J. Dillon, a DeAndre Swift, a Devin Singletary, maybe even a guy like Austin Ekeler. Like, to me, if the Raiders miss out on Jacobs, it's because they went cheap. And when I say they went cheap, it just means they weren't willing to offer him as much money because Jacobs wants to return here. So if you're not willing to offer that money, you're not going to get a Derrick Henry. You're not going to get a Tony Pollard. You're not going to get a Saquon Barkley. Hell, you might not even get an Austin Ekeler at those price tags, which then also means then you got to turn your attention to the running backs in the draft. And I do believe that the Silver and Black end up getting at least one running back in this year's draft. I don't know who it's going to be necessarily. I know that the Raiders like Marshawn Lloyd because he was a winner at the Senior Bowl. I know for a fact that the Raiders are very high on Ray Davis from Kentucky. He's a name to keep in mind. There's a lot of running back talent out there, and at the end of the day, if I'm going to invest my picks, maybe let's just say your 5th round pick, your 4th round pick, your 6th round pick, and a running back, I don't think that's a bad investment at all compared to paying a running back all this top money because you're going to have to pay an RB. You're not going to pay him a lot, but we've also seen it doesn't matter as much as having a great running back. You need to have great offensive line. You have great pieces all around him. So I'll tell you which running back that I believe if, let's just say Las Vegas wanted to allocate their money to the running back position, and they missed out on Josh Jacobs. So you have, let's say, this money that you were willing to allocate to Jacobs. If you missed out on a running back, I'll tell you which player in free agency is the most likely to take that money and they send it to. Before I tell you who that is, if you don't know our programming schedule, I'm going to be live on Thursday, Friday, and Monday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific. So if you missed our live show, I know I was gone for a whole week for vacation, but I promise you this, I'm going to be back better than ever, so hit that subscribe button. So the number one player that I believe is the most likely to sign with the Raiders, if the Raiders wanted to spend money on Jacobs, but he just got a better and bigger deal somewhere else, and let's say the Raiders were willing to spend, I don't know, $7, $8, $9 million on a running back, and they go, you know what? We didn't get Jacobs, so who's going to be the guy we go out and get? His name is Austin Ekeler, and according to ESPN, the top 3 destinations for Ekeler, all in the AFC West: Chiefs, Chargers, Raiders. If you think that for a second, if you're the Raiders, you go, I don't want him to go to the Chiefs. I don't think it's a good fit with the Chiefs. I don't think he's going to go back to the Chargers personally. And then with his relationship with Tom Telesco, the Raiders do make a lot of sense. So if the Raiders don't end up bringing back Jacobs, Ekeler to me is their top target if they do plan on spending big at the running back position. Ekeler and Telesco have that good relationship. Ekeler was a UDFA and got a lot of work there with the Chargers, ended up making a hell of a career, and he fits really well with the Raiders running back coach and Carnell Williams because Carnell is going to want to get the running backs implemented in the passing game, which is exactly what Ekeler has the ability to do. I am curious to see how he fits in a power run scheme because that's kind of what the Raiders offensive line coach Craig does, and even like a guy like Luke Getsy ends up doing. But if you're able to pair Ekeler and Zamir White, to me, that's a really good pairing at the running back position. So my question out there is this: should the Raiders sign Austin Ekeler? Give me a yes, or I want you to type your N for no. And there's a lot of different ways that you can answer this question. Hell, there's going to be a lot of different ways that I answer this question. And Ekeler's been a name that I have brought up before, but Ekeler was also a dude that I talked to at the media day during the Super Bowl. And I was like, bro, do you want to come to the Las Vegas Raiders? And his answer was simple. I don't remember exactly what he told me, but it was along the lines of, it depends what the paycheck is. And that's basically what every single running back is going to tell you. So for me personally, if the Raiders want to spend money on a running back and miss on Josh Jacobs, putting that money towards Ekeler is not a bad idea. Like, if you told me right now we got to put $7 million a year towards Austin Ekeler or $12 million towards Josh Jacobs, I'll tell you right now, I'll take Austin Ekeler on that deal compared to Jacobs. And it's not because I don't like Jacobs, because Ekeler can also run between the tackles. He also catch the football. Yeah, he's battled some injuries here and there, but so is Jacobs. So in terms of the projected contract, PFF has him at 2 years, $13.5 million, so $6.75 million per year. Spotrac has him at 3 years, $22.4 million at $7.4 million a year. I would say out of the more likely contracts, it's the PFF one. I just don't see in today's day and age a running back getting a 3-year deal. And it's not because maybe they don't deserve it. It's just because of what the market currently is. So if you told me right now, Mitch, Austin Ekeler, 2 years, $13.5 million. I'd say sign me up for that every day of the week.